Hey there, I'm Taz Singh, and I've been working with communities for as long as I can remember. Fundamentally, communities are made up of people, so this is my journey going to those communities and talking to those people. Come along with me. Amazing. I'm back here now with my old friend Peter Kieltyka. I've known Peter since 2009, back when I was just starting in the Ruby scene here in Toronto. I think Peter used to host events out of his office. And so back then, I was just starting as a Rubyist, I was just starting my professional career. I had no idea what I was doing. And I've learned so much from Peter, learned so much from all the events that he hosted back there. If I'm not mistaken, it was a Toronto Ruby meetup at your old office. What was it, like New Layer?
Yeah.
Back in Liberty Village. And yeah, like that was an awesome event.
That was exactly right, man. Yeah, that was those were like the old days, just the beginnings, you know?
Just the beginnings, yeah. And so I don't think I even spoke to Peter back then. I think I was so overwhelmed by so many people doing so many things. Because if you're just starting out as a developer, if you're just starting out in this whole field, knowledge is everything, and kind of learning from the community and learning from people that have done this before, it's fundamental. And I think for me, I was just kind of a freelance, doing my own thing. I didn't really know what I was doing, and so people like Peter running a company with other software engineers, all doing crazy things and all kind of learning from each other internally, and then broadcasting that out publicly as well, that taught me a ton. And so you used to host Toronto Ruby back at your old office at New Layer. Then I think you ended up so I guess tell me more about kind of what you did back then.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, man. I remember you were doing some really cool security stuff back then too in Liberty Village. It was like a little campus. But yeah, it was awesome to get to meet you all those years, and I don't know how many years it's been now. It's a lot. But yeah, back then we were starting, just graduating university, and I saw software engineering, and we had a consultancy going called New Layer, and we were really passionate about Ruby and building things on the web, and then mobile soon after. And the first thing we did was just really start, as soon as we planted ourselves in Toronto, was really connecting with the community out there. And Ruby was our language of choice, and it just so happened there was a really thriving Ruby community. I made a lot of great friends, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of those friends for me is Peter, and so it's awesome, kind of following your journey and following your story from all the way back then. And I think back then, I think you were releasing open source software even back then.
Yeah, forever, man. I wouldn't say anything too crazy at the time. I got some better work under my belt now, but yeah, I was just very passionate about building stuff and wanting to just do consultancy. That's kind of where we started, and just starting our own company, fresh out of school, and just went out there looking for clients. Actually, I guess that was another big part, and hiring and clients. That was where the community got us focused on.
Yep. And I guess it worked out because New Layer ended up being acquired. And so you went on to then start another company after that. Mm-hmm. And then I think, were you still focused on Ruby at the new company, or?
I loved Ruby so much for so long. I was able to think in Ruby is very expressive, but then I kept fighting with trying to make it really performant and highly scalable. And I was I'm done with this. And I was just no, I'm going to seek out a new language, a language that can help me write highly concurrent servers. And that's around the time Go was around for 2 years. And that's when I shifted into Go. And so I was exploring, actually I was looking at Rust and Go at the time. And then I was Rust, the standard library wasn't even fully complete. I was looked really cool, but I was no, I'm not going to go too experimental. And so I went with Go, and I was really pleased with that. And so, yeah, my company thereafter, Presley, was all focused, all infrastructure was built in Go, and still early in the ecosystem. So that was a pretty cool green field of open source. I remember some people were thinking we're crazy about trying to build everything in Go.
I was definitely one of those people back then, because I was still building everything in Ruby. I was still a big proponent of hiring from the Ruby community, because hiring, obviously it's a big thing. Obviously, when trying to start a company, you need developers, and need developers that essentially that are knowledgeable essentially in the subject matter, which Ruby is what I used quite frequently back in those days. So how did you so for you getting started so early in Go, how did you did you kind of go back to community? Did you do more kind of community stuff? Did you get back into open source? How did you even I guess train an ecosystem of developers to be kind of familiar enough with Go for you to be able to kind of hire them and kind of grow your company?
Yeah, I guess there's obviously a lot of luck involved, which is that at the time Go wasn't crazy popular or anything. And I just, because with like looking at all the languages, like which one do I want to pick next, I started learning it and prototyping and determined like, okay, this is what I'm going to choose. Yeah, I was actually looking for a Toronto Go meetup. I'm not joking. And I look it up. And I'm like, oh, this thing, there's been no meetup for like a year. And I'm like, oh man. So I reached out to the team there and I said, hey, like, can I run a meetup? Do you mind if I set up a meetup at my office? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so that's when after that, I ran the Go meetup in Toronto, like the Go TO as it's called, for like 2 years. And it grew to like, I think over 1,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And then passed it off to like, Tim, who went to go work at Shopify and some other folks. So and it lives on to this day. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so and also like the Go kind of whole community, like there was a wave of, of developers, and now of course it's a really hot language that a lot of people are building.
Yeah, Go today is massive. Go today is huge, and so yeah, it's just amazing that, like, again, fostering that community and building up that kind of knowledge, across people. It's just kind of fundamental to kind of fostering knowledge transfer, and then at the end of the day, hiring, for companies and kind of growing companies in that way. So that's amazing. So that was your next company, which was Presley, and so you transitioned from Ruby into Go at that time.
That's right.
And so I think the most astounding thing for me, knowing Peter and knowing his journey from like 2009 and knowing the type of like builder that he is and the type of brain that he is, it was I guess what you're working on now that has kind of astounded me the most. And so I'm going to try to do a poor job of telling the story, and then Peter's going to do a much better job of telling the story. But essentially, you released a few Go open source libraries. You were kind of like building a ton in the space. Your brain was kind of firing on all cylinders, and like kind of what's the next direction to innovate on. And you went into blockchain gaming. And I remember hearing about this back in like 2017, and I was like, what like a blockchain gaming? Like, there's one thing I know about blockchain, everything's slow, everything takes a long time to load. One thing we perfected in Web 2 was a loading spinner, you know what I mean? To kind of communicate loading times, to communicate kind of like a delay in processing. So I was like, are you building like the age of loading spinners? Like, what sort of game are you building in this space? So I guess, yeah, like tell me more about that.
Yeah, that was, it was definitely like, yeah, kind of in 2017, I was, since I like infrastructure, and then I've always been really passionate about distributed systems. And I was always thinking that, distributed systems, they're like this, like, they're like the perfect structure for servers. They're self-organic, they're autonomous, they're high availability, they're scalable, they have all this crazy stuff, right? And like P2P systems.
Like, if I'm not mistaken, did you build a Go library that's open source for that?
It's not a P2P library, but it helped write microservices for infrastructure, but like more like kind of centralized servers. But
so like you've already been exploring the space for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Just thinking about, again, infrastructure, servers, scalability, but in my own time, I'd always like study distributed systems and stuff. But like but I always thought like it had like a greater purpose. It had like because it's so powerful, but I felt like it didn't really like, I didn't see it doing too many crazy things until I discovered like Bitcoin, right? And which was, of course, a distributed system plus cryptography plus economics that, of course, kind of gave birth to this like internet native digital asset, which is super cool. And I thought that was like, wow, so this is like, I believed very much in the truth of that protocol, for all those reasons. And then, so I was like, I of course came upon Ethereum, I don't know whenever that was, I don't know, 2015 or something like this. And it was happening right here in Toronto, which is super cool. And I didn't imagine when someone first told me though, like, oh, Ethereum is going to be, like some guy told me, actually, one of my past friends, he's like, oh man, I know there's a guy who's building, a better version of Bitcoin just down the street. I'm like, no way, man, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm not sure if the same guy told me a similar thing around the same time, and I was like, all right, buddy, all right, all
yeah,
right,
I was like, sure,
okay,
sure,
all
man.
right, sure.
Oh yeah,
all
and then
right.
he's like, oh, he's this 19-year-old, Russian Canadian guy. I'm like, no, that's not happening. But he had some very interesting kind of philosophical views and beliefs. This guy was quite a visionary. I'll tell you, this guy's, he's doing, whatever he wants to do at this point. But anyways, so that got me very curious about, Ethereum and looking at it more closely. And then I was still at the time working on my startup Presley. And so I was the CTO and co-founder, and I was like fully committed to that. I was like, we got to take it all the way. And so I forget the exact time. Maybe it was 2017 or 2016. The company got acquired, and helping with the transition. And then I was thinking like, just really passionate. Actually, it's funny because I was also around the time building a hobby video game.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
In my spare time, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's super cool. So like essentially for me, I got started in software and tech, but when I was essentially I was basically 11 years old, and I was trying to make a video game. And
Crazy.
so like this speaks volumes to me, because kind of what drew me to the whole space was video games. I mean, when you're back when you're 11 years old, back in those days, all you're doing is playing video games all the time. And kind of like my curiosity of like, how do I make a video game? How do I how do I physically build one of these things? Like, I'm used to like configuring my like Windows networking, you know what I mean? I'm used to like going into command line and kind of like tweaking things a little bit. So I'm like, what's that next step? Like, how do I actually make one of these? And so I sat down, I kind of studied JavaScript. I quickly discovered you couldn't build a video game in JavaScript. I went on to learn C++, and then like as an 11-year-old kid, I made my first three-dimensional video game engine with physics and everything, and I made my first video game. It probably leaked memory like a sieve. If you've ever done C++, which I know you have.
Not much. No.
You haven't done C++?
No, man.
Oh,
not a whole lot.
I take that back. He hasn't done C++.
Yeah,
So,
you got that on me, man. I know you're a legendary coder too, man.
No.
I thought when we were going to meet up today, I thought I was going to be able to convince you to come join Horizon, but it's cool that you're doing your own startup right now, which is phenomenal. And again, thank you very much for, just getting to hang and talk.
Oh man, it's just a pleasure to see you. And I mean, like, the main reason is that, again, I've known Peter for so long, and he's been instrumental to my career. If it wasn't for Toronto Ruby and all of the things that he's doing within the community, if it wasn't for everyone that you're working with, that ended up becoming very good friends of mine.
There's a lot of good friends, man.
And kind of like learning from all of their collective experiences, and kind of just building fundamentally for all these years, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I mean, it's kind of it's like right back at you. I've always said. Like on this channel, if you've been watching for a while, that in my opinion, the make of a person is how much they go on to enable others. And I mean, Peter and everything he's done is really representative of that. So like video games. So starting off with video games, that speaks volumes to me. So like, what you're just trying to build a video game, basically.
Yeah. So like. Yeah, I was thinking just making a fun video game, and then I didn't really think. So yeah, back to the blockchain games, and the game I was making wasn't Skyweaver, and which is the game I'm working on now. It was a different game, but I was just kind of having fun. But then when I knew that I wanted to do something in Web3, because as I recognized, it wasn't called Web. I don't think people were using the term Web3. It was just blockchain, and I was like, oh, there's this next set of internet level protocols that enable digital assets and the programmability of them, that enable these economies on the internet, like that have native digital currencies that you can add on your own and do this cool stuff where people can actually own things now, and they can trade them, and they could even actually kind of collect value by being valuable to the network, right? I always like this. That was very clear to me. I think Bitcoin represented that, and of course Ethereum was clearly representing that at the time. By 2017, when I was like really looking at this very seriously, it's straightforward, right? The miners are helping secure the network by mining these transactions, and they're getting rewarded in Bitcoin or in Ethereum, in the native currency of that network. And so by producing value, they're getting value.
Right.
And that was the very clear thing to me, that was like, this is the design paradigm that's enabled now. And I was like, okay, so what is, and I was looking at these protocols, I was like, well, what can I I'm going to make out of this? And I wanted to, I didn't want to just, there's a lot, the work was crazy. These protocols and the amount of researchers were like so many brilliant people working on stuff that like way smarter than me. I was like, I can't weigh into this stuff, like not even close.
I bet you read a lot of white papers.
Yeah, of course.
Like there's like, some of those white papers are so terse and difficult to like kind of understand, that I can just imagine like the amount of, like reading and kind of like researching you had to do to kind of like even start with like kind of that.
Yeah, it's crazy deep. And, but yeah, I was like, I want to productize this stuff. I want to build a product out of this stuff that my friends could use. And because naturally now there's a new set of protocols, and I knew that was going to happen. So I was thinking of, then I was kind of pondering like, what is the right vertical that would allow me to do that? And I don't know if it's because I was working on a game or, whatever, but gaming just gaming was the vertical I thought of. It made a lot of sense, and of course, because in video games, they're already based on virtual economies.
Oh yeah, like for me, like back when I was, I guess 11, 12, the second game that I built, it was actually like I downloaded like the Half-Life SDK, and then like basically the thing that I hated building models. Like 3D models take so much time to build, and it's just like so many vertices and like this, that, and the other. I didn't want to build any models, so basically I said like, how can I take the existing models from Half-Life? How can I take existing models from Counter-Strike? How can I basically build like essentially a PvE game, like players versus enemies, multiplayer, where it's like all my friends on the same team against like a bunch of Half-Life enemies. And so like I used like the same Counter-Strike skins and the Counter-Strike guns in order to kind of get like my friends as one team against like an AI set of enemies. And so kind of like that was kind of like the second game that I built. And like kind of speaking of like that reminds me of Counter-Strike, where in Counter-Strike there's kind of whole economies around skins. Well, like back when I was 12, that didn't really exist, but it kind of like went on to kind of develop into this. And so like now you can kind of like buy, sell, trade like Counter-Strike skins for like a lot of money. But obviously like that's more like what Web 2 in a sense, in that it doesn't have any of these kind of dynamics of like kind of the network, or like you can't like trade it outside of Counter-Strike. You're kind of trading it within the Counter-Strike world. It's not open. It's not kind of it's not following you wherever you travel. Like kind of like the Web3 space is enabled. But anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent.
No, that was really cool. But I agree. It's perfect. It's a perfect example why that was the area that a lot of people are thinking. And I'm thinking,
yeah, and like just going back to like that time though, like what 2017 you said, like for me, I'm familiar with like ERC 721 and like the whole NFT standard that exists today. That didn't exist back then.
No, yeah, when we were looking at it was the summer. Early summer, and yeah, it would just kind of, this is when we were ideating in a big way. And at that time it was like, okay, so games made a lot of sense because the virtual items and the markets and the economies and this and that. But now we're like, okay, now we have Web3, and of course the ERC20 existed. So the ERC20 already represented how to represent a digital asset as one asset, right, for a protocol. But it's like, okay, well, if you can make one asset, you can make lots of assets, right? But it was kind of thinking like, what is the right architecture for designing of one of these blockchain-based games, powered games. And that's when I was thinking like, oh, is it like an in-game? Are you going to like instantiate some kind of currency and use it for in-game spending or something like that? I was like, no, that's not it. And that's when I was like, oh no, it's like, no, it's the virtual items. The items are the currency. That's what's the thing. It has the utility. It's the thing that you own. And that's what every game is made up of. But when you look at like a game engine, everything comes down to a game object, and which is ultimately the item. And that's what people are purchasing. So I was like, okay, that's the currency, and that was pretty much it. I mean, yeah, the 721 I think came out in September, but I didn't even know it came out. I didn't even know. But yeah, and then we were just plugging away on our thing, and and I guess that's when actually I spoke with Ian, who you know as well.
Yeah, like our good friend Ian Ha. Again, like I remember talking to Ian, and he said, Taz, I just quit my job. I'm going to go work with Peter on Horizon blockchain games, and I'm just like, so two of you are working on Age of Loading Spinners now? Like, what is this? Like, what are you thinking? Like, how does this work? You know what I mean? And it was so beyond my comprehension back in 2017, and it still is a bit beyond my comprehension today. But at least now it's kind of clicked. I feel like you were pioneers in that whole space.
We're definitely early. Definitely did some cool work. Yeah, and then I told Ian, I was like, yeah, man, like the items, like they're the currency. And he said, oh, that'd be like a trading card game would be perfect. And I was like, oh, dude, that's exactly right. You're brilliant, man. That's completely correct. Because then I was like, because of course, like you already have the analogy. There's lots of different cards. They're all different like assets. They all have their tradable, their utilities of the card themselves. That's the gameplay. And they all have their own different prices. And I reminded me of a kid and trading cards and baseball cards, or obviously playing Magic and all this stuff.
Oh, like for me it was Pokemon. Like I grew up on Pokemon. Like my car is still called Charizard. And so because I love Pokemon so much. In fact, like I'm not sure if I told you the story. I'll tell it to the viewers. But essentially, one time I was driving down from Toronto to New York City, and I was driving my car, which has the license plate Charizard on it. It literally says says Charizard on the license plate. And so I was driving down. I think we were crossing over one of the bridges there, and so like you need to pay toll, like essentially at all those bridges in New York City. And so I go through the toll booth, we pay the toll. I had like Canadian dollars. We had to like find like US dollars to like actually put in this toll booth at the time. It was so silly. But found the US dollars, pay the toll booth. The gate goes up, and I drive through the toll booth, and then on the other side there's a police officer there. The police officer puts his lights on, and like pulls me over, and I'm just like. What happened? Like I paid the toll. There's no way in hell I'm speeding, in that little tiny little bit. Like what's going on? And so this police officer pulls me over, and he's like, and he's like, hello, sir. I'm just like, excuse me, sir. Like, was I speeding? Like, what was I doing? And he's like, no. I just wanted to stop you to ask you, how did you get that license plate? And I said, oh, it's because the car's fully evolved, officer. And then I just drove away. And so my buddy that was in the passenger seat, was like, did you just tell a New York City police officer that your car's fully evolved and then drive away? I'm just like, you just saw what happened. and so like I love Pokemon. I love Pokemon so much.
He must have loved Pokemon too, I guess.
My car is Charizard, and I guess he liked it as well. Because funny, Charizard used fly, and I just kind of flew away. Thankfully, he didn't chase me or anything. I think it was just all a big joke or whatever. But that speaks volumes to me, because like I grew up in that same way, kind of trading cards, playing Pokemon cards and everything. Mm-hmm. So really, like what you were trying to model was that same type of dynamic, but essentially on blockchain, which is super cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then we started on research. We're like, oh, how do we do the gameplay? What's the architecture and all the stuff? We were thinking like about off-chain gameplay, scalability, looking at research and da. But at the end of the day, like in all the work that happened and things that we did, one thing like bear market or bull market is that one thing that was really clear to us was that like this stuff, it didn't really matter what the market was doing, because this really represented just though like this new set of open standards for representing virtual goods and how you can program against them, right? And that's all that really mattered. And then you get this interoperability and all these kind of cool network effects as a result of that. And that was independent from, so we just wanted to make this great piece of content. And so we, working on a game called Skyweaver, and it's a, multiplayer game, 1 versus 1, and, like Pokemon and Hearthstone and Magic. And so we've been pushing on that for all this time.
So you started, so just to recap a little bit, you started exploring the whole blockchain crypto space. You read a ton of white papers. You kind of dived into the tech like immensely. Like Ian and yourself ideated on what could work conceptually for Skyweaver, and you kind of like, yes, like the tech and the concept makes sense, but how do you start with that? You know what I mean? Like obviously starting a company, it's difficult, it's challenging. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like deep tech kind of needed there to kind of facilitate and build as a basis of that. You know what I mean? What kind of enabled you to start on that journey?
Yeah, well, one of the things I didn't want to do is get too intimidated by it, because it's very easy to be like, it's very daunting and overwhelming. And then it would be like a lot of fear of failure and all this stuff. So one of the things when we were approaching it, intentional, unintentional, but I was just more like, this is just a fun art project. We're just having fun. Like it sounds like a cool idea, but we were really clear. And I got to say, I also started rallying up more colleagues, more co-founders, because I was like, I can't do this myself. This is a big deal, right? The next person I talked to was William Hua. He's a guy I went to university with.
Yeah, he's also a very good friend of mine. One of those, like another brilliant minds.
Smartest guy I know in the whole world.
I will confirm that statement on blockchain.
Exactly. He's the smartest guy.
Brilliant.
In engineering school, he was the smartest guy in my whole school. He get like 98%, everyone gets 50%, So I was like, and just everything. And he was actually, we finished engineering school. I went to go start a company, and William went to the accelerator. He was doing his master's, and then they took him from that. They're like, oh yeah, like forget your master's. We're going to take you right to a PhD now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like I've never heard this ever. And I've known William for ages and ages and ages.
He's super chill, man. He was studying, he was solving cutting edge math. He's
super chill, like very humble.
Brilliant. And so I was like, I'm going to need William on my team. I was like, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to need Will on my team. So I messaged Will, and I was like, yo, Will, like, what are you up to right now, man? And he's like, oh, I'm just kind of chilling right now, man. And like, I'm like, oh, perfect. I was like, do you want to do some blockchain stuff together? He's like, all right, like, let's hear about it, And then we got together, and so started telling William about this game. And then Daniel Raka, another friend that I met, was really cool, actually. And He was a Brazilian guy who was traveling through Toronto, and I got to meet him. And I remember seeing some of his work and his illustrations and his design work as a UX designer, and I was like, this is the best work I've ever seen as an illustrator. He did this Lord of the Rings game. I was like, this is the best I've ever seen. And we actually met like in the springtime or something of 2017. And then when I started thinking about this game, I was like, okay, I need a designer on this, or like an illustrator. So I contacted Daniel and I said, yo man, like, you want to like, work on this game with me? And I sent him an email and I didn't hear back for like a week. I'm like, oh man, I got this genius idea. Like you're not, like, and so I messaged him. I was like, hey dude, like, what do you think of the idea? Like, do you want to get together? And so we get together for drinks. And I'm telling him about the idea, and he's listening. He's asking very, 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 very thoughtful questions, and he's like asking me all these things. How's it going to work? And da da da. He's like really, really sharp. And I'm going through it, and he's like, all right, I'm in. And then, which is really cool. And then it was interesting because I thought he was like, oh, you're going to come, and then, but he's like, yeah, but I got to find a job. I got to find a job to stay in Toronto. I'm like, nah, man, this is going to be your job now, man. You're going to be a co-founder. We're going to get this going, Anyway, so we got a lawyer, got him sponsored, got a work permit. Now he's a permanent resident. He's a married man.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
He's cruising. Anyways, and Daniel, who did all of our artwork, today, and Skyweaver as you know it, and all the illustrations, and like we have a team of probably 10 illustrators, a lot internationally, a lot of in Brazil connections because of Daniel. And Daniel led all that work. Daniel's unbelievable. Like I said,
I've taken a look at you. I've taken a look at the artwork of Skyweaver, and like it's a story in and of itself. You know what I mean? If you look at the composition, you look at the colors, you kind of look at the characters and everything, and like it's a kind of tells a story in and of itself, and it's so dynamic and so
very
cool.
Powerful, man.
I actually didn't know about that story. That's
so then we got
cool.
And then Daniel, and of course Ian and William. And then Michael Sanders as well, another colleague and co-founder, just again, quite a visionary in blockchain and of himself, and the things that he wrote and that he does, and he's been exposed to the space for a really long time, and he has a lot of experience with doing marketing in a number of companies, and and then we got together and I was pitching him the idea of what I was doing, and I was actually pitching him to be like, yo man, do you want to invest in my project, and then he was like, yeah, I'll invest in that. I'm like, okay, amazing, dude, thank you. And then he went on a cool trip, comes back, and we get together, and he reads me this poem that he wrote, and it was about karma, and it was about a ledger, and like that we all live by a ledger in our lives, and that ledger is karma.
Oh wow!
And it's called The Future Myth of Blockchain, interestingly, and I was like, it's fucking amazing, and I was like, oh, dude, you got to join Horizon.
yeah.
And that's when he was our fifth co-founder. Anyway, so that's pretty
that's some good karma right there. That's some good karma.
Yeah, it would just like super click, and so it's really, really cool. Yeah, a lot of great stuff, a lot of good serendipity and stuff. And so, but we wanted to go back, like we were like, okay, we're just having fun. We're not taking it too seriously. This might be impossible. And we just like were like, just having fun. And at the time I was just kind of funding it out of my own pocket, like different things, whatever, because I was like, we don't have any investors, no big deal. We're just going to see where this goes. Cause like, if we can't build it, we're not going to raise capital for something if we can't deliver on it,
Yeah.
So, and then we were working on it. And then actually Julia, my wife, she's like, we're talking about going to the next step. She's like, well, if you really want to like, help the company, cause I was like, yeah, I want to push this. She's like, but you got to go raise that money. And I'm like, all right, babe, I'm going to go focus on raising the money now. And that's when
you have a team of 5 at that point, right?
At that time, it was 5 of us. Yeah.
And so like what? Like,
and we had to hire more people. Like we were already interviewing,
people, right?
Yeah, we had to do more stuff and like get it kind of accelerated because like we had the prototype, and so I was like, all right, I'll go do that. And that's when all that's So that was it. So and then
that's insane. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
But like, so you have a team of 5 at this point. You have to hire more people. You have like an idea in terms of the technological prototype. You have an idea of what sort of game you're making. You have like all the right people on the team. Like that's crazy. Like now like rewinding, talking to Ian way back then, it all makes sense now. You know what I mean? Because like back then when Ian was telling me this, I'm just like what? Like how? Like I'm like my brain was struggling. But kind of hearing this backstory, it all makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, dude, it's really.
So
all the years have been so much fun. I got to tell you, it's been a blast.
So you had to raise funding to make it happen. So like for me, I'm not very good at fundraising, admittedly. But there's one thing I know, which is that like investors want to see kind of like an entry into market and kind of attacking a market. They kind of want to see kind of that for you to effectively fundraise off of. I've tried in my past to kind of start with something very deep tech, like it was essentially peer-to-peer mesh networking, where each phone connects to each other phone and kind of builds a network and so on and so forth. We needed kind of immense amounts of funding to get that off the ground before we can show kind of business presence and start building products off of. Like entering blockchain, entering this whole space back then so early, kind of being pioneers again in blockchain gaming, like technically starting before the standard even existed for ERC 721. Might have came out shortly after, yada yada yada, but it's still very 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 early days. It's kind of the same kind of concern that I have, where you have a lot of tech to kind of get through, a lot of tech to deliver on before you can start effectively building products. Is that right, or is that?
Yeah, no, it took us like a shit ton of years. We did have, sure, we had like a really, like we had an interesting POC, some really great tech that we kind of discovered through the scalability research, connected a lot of good dots. We were on a roll for sure, but there was, and we had alphas and betas, but yeah, I mean, in actuality, it wasn't until like 4 years until we finally turned it onto the Polygon mainnet, such that we could actually commercialize it.
So like how do you convince investors of like, hey, like if you help us now, 4 years later we're gonna actually turn this thing on. Like how do you?
It's crazy. Well, a few things. We were pretty fortunate in that we found like the right investors, and I think that's kind of the key. And it wasn't really supposed to be taking us 4 years, and we could have launched it sooner. But like as we went deeper into the space, and down the path, we discovered the next thing, like the next kind of blocker, or if our kind of vision for Skyweaver was to not make something just for like the crypto community. We wanted it to be crypto native and kind of integrity of Web3, but it was to make it accessible for anyone in the world to be able to come in and play. Right. So to do that, there was a lot of infrastructure that we had to kind of lay out, and we were prepared to do that. And that was the whole kind of idea. But we discovered one new kind of design paradigm. We're like, we got to incorporate this, and so it took us, there was a lot of patience from our partners for sure, which we very appreciate. But yeah, like, so, it was actually the spring of 2018 that so it was like kind of like 6 months into our development.
Yeah.
Because it's January 2018 that we really got focused on this thing. Because by the time we built the team and conceptualized, like, we were already designing stuff and but we all started on the kitchen table full time, 100%, 120% at that time. And it took us some time. And then the first thing we did is also interesting back to community was we connected to, the local Ethereum community.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was when we met, guys like Liam Horn, Josh Stark, Ethan Buckman, the guys at Block Geeks. And so they ran a really cool space in Kensington with different Ethereum development meetups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the group out of L4 at the time. And these guys were all super cool. And they're all doing incredible things now. Like Liam's done crazy research, the CEO of Optimism, Josh Stark, at the Ethereum Foundation, really, helping evolve that very much. Ethan Buckman.
They're all Torontonian?
Yeah, they're all Torontonian,
what?
man. Yeah, dude. Yeah, Ethan Buckman wrote Tendermint in his Guelph thesis, which I read is a beautiful thesis. Actually, I would welcome everyone to read.
Like for me, I moved to London, UK in 2017, and what?
I know, dude. Crazy. I know. Toronto's insane, dude.
And I just need to clarify for all the Londoners listening that when Peter says Kensington, Toronto is nothing like Kensington, UK. Kensington, London. It's where like the palace is. It's where like it's all like posh and fancy, and like there's all this like posh vibes and everything. It's very royal. It's basically the royal borough of Kensington and Chelsea in London, and so it's very posh and fancy. Kensington, Toronto is the exact polar opposite of that. It's very
grassroots,
very grassroots,
chill,
very hip, very trendy. There's a lot of it's the complete opposite. I think there's like a bar there which is like it's like based in a supermarket or something, and so it's like this like supermarket bar or something like that. But like just to give you an idea, you will not find a supermarket bar in the royal borough of Kensington and Chelsea in London. It was a whole different scene, a whole different vibe, but very grassroots, as he said. So wow, I had no idea all those people were Torontonian.
So super
Toronto.
just this really amazing community, I guess, because that's Ethereum kind of came out of here. And yeah, so went there, started meeting folks, and then presented our research, presented our work. We did a few presentations at the community, at the meetups, and the folks there, they were really encouraging to us. They're like, this is really cool, and they kind of brought us under their wing a bit, and we were just kept pushing and pushing and pushing on our research, and we were like the gaming guys, and they were like saying, oh, like, what are you doing over here? How are you doing that? And we were working on state channel research, it turned out, which was very similar work other people were researching, long story short. But then at the time when we were looking to do a fundraise, we reached out to them, we reached out to Liam, and Liam and Josh actually also started, they founded ETH Global.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah.
ETH Global is insane, dude.
And that's that's the conference, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's the international conference,
Yeah,
man, which
wow.
has been so instrumental to actually Ethereum's growth.
Wow.
And developer ecosystem growth. And again, like, so yeah, so I reached out to and I went to some other events, and at the time it was just like, it was their first, anyway, so just the beginnings of the events. And then I reached out to those guys and I said, hey, do you guys have any thoughts as to investors which might have like an appetite for this stuff? And they're like, yeah, I know some people, So that's when we got connected to the firm at Initialized.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so out of San Francisco, so run by at the time Gary Tan and Alexis Ohanian, and
Wow.
among Vince as well, and we got to meet them, and we were really lucky to work with those guys because they immediately. I mean, I didn't even know at the time actually, but I knew obviously Gary Tan and Alexis Ohanian. I knew they were like legendary investors. I was like,
I mean, those folks are legends. I mean, and I know like obviously like essentially Alexis, the founder of Reddit, obviously is huge into community as well. And so it's so like soul nourishing for me to kind of hear that like it was through the community that you were introduced to those folks, and those folks are also immensely focused on community. That's amazing to be elevated and kind of empowered through community to kind of do these types of things. So so you met Gary, you ended up meeting Alexis over at Initialized.
Yeah.
And what happened then?
Yeah. So I got to meet Vince, and then I pitched initially, and then Vince introduced us to the rest of the group. And we presented, and we were Michael and I were just like, oh man, if we could only get Initialized, we'd like the best in the best in the world, and because for the level. And we had a meeting with them, like a remote meeting, and there was like 10 of them on the call, and they were all internationally distributed at the time. I think just where their plans were. We showed them everything. We showed them our product, our vision, and they were like, it was just a really good conversation. And I was like, oh man. And then Gary called me like 2 days later, and he's like, yeah, man, we're gonna fund this. I'm like, amazing, man, amazing. And
wow.
And I was like, that's amazing. And it was cool when I was chatting with him. He's like, oh, so like you're telling me like you're making Skyweaver and Arcadium? And I said, yep. Yeah, we're making
Arcadium. Okay.
Yeah, so Arcadium was the name of our platform initially, our like open source platform for Ethereum like wallets and infrastructure. We've since renamed it to Sequence, but at the time we were like, we kind of evolved the brand a little bit, even though the Arcadium brand was cool. But yeah, he's like, oh, so you're telling me you're gonna make a game and the platform? I'm like, yep, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And he's like, okay, that sounds great. And so yeah, we were really fortunate again to have like their support because, like I didn't even know this, but they were like seed investors in Coinbase.
Wow,
it's crazy, right? I had no idea until actually like only like 2 years ago. But it was just they're the kinds of investors that like can really invest into the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they saw the future. They're like, they believed in the macro like trend, like where this is going, and they're like, that's what we're going to invest in, right? I mean, because of their prior kind of success and their foresight, they can make that kind of move. I understand not all investors can make that move. It's a difficult move to make.
It's a very difficult move to make, and and this is what kind of astounds me is that like I know trying to start like my peer-to-peer mesh company, so many investors were just like no, we don't want to fund the platform development. We just want to fund purely the product and kind of the business itself that's built off of that platform. And so it's crazy to me to hear that they funded both the platform development as well as the product built off of it so early on.
Well, I mean, it was really the game was leading, like the content was leading to do that. And I think, again, it wasn't planned to take us so friggin' long, but but again, it was just like we wanted to keep making it better. I mean, we did have a game ready by December 2018, which was an alpha and actually marked our production release. And it was pretty cool. And we co-authored the 1155 token standard, and we built
Oh,
we had
wow.
a wallet built already. We had like a lot of crazy shit built, but like we're like, no, we're gonna go. But that did mark our production release. That's when we started our community on Discord, and we were literally doing like production releases every week or two, like deploys,
Oh, wow. Yep.
and
Yep.
we never stopped from all
Yep.
that time. And that was really cool, like really extremely iterative. That's kind of it, and that's how it went down.
And then here we are. I guess what 4 years later,
Yeah, exactly.
like full release of Skyweaver Game,
Yep.
and like anyone can go play it right now. I guess yeah. Tell me more about the game itself. So it's a trading card game, and so like how do I start? Like how do I play the game?
Yeah, so the game's available on your desktop. You can play it in your browser. You can even download it on Windows, Linux, or Mac. You can download it on the Android store. You can download it on the Apple store. You can play it on also a phone or obviously a tablet. So it's kind of like all desktop, all phones, which is pretty cool. We had that was our intention with the release, because we're not going to miss mobile, and we're not going to miss the web, because
Yeah, and I mean like again, like I've known you since 2009, and I feel like so many folks know you through essentially your mobile app development as well. Like
Yeah.
obviously your web development like shot back in those days, and obviously your mobile development shot back in those days. You were doing this stuff since 2009.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer to kind of like essentially bring those things together, powered by what blockchain on the back end. So how does that work? So you have the front end is web-based and mobile-based. How do you connect that to a blockchain?
Yeah, so the idea is, so it's like a multiplayer one versus one strategy game, right? Kind of think of like, obviously Pokemon, Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering. And like to kind of tell you about the game a little bit, the game we kind of intentionally designed, like we want it to be fast paced and fun, and also have a lot of depth around skill and mastery. I think that's what makes these strategy games really fun, right? So you can kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so our intention was, okay, like obviously I have background in playing lots of Magic, not like crazy, but like definitely growing up. And then I never played much Hearthstone, but I gave it a try, and I was like, I really like the mana system. Yeah, it was really fast paced. So yeah, the game, we were like, let's make something in between those genres, and that's we were really fortunate. We met a guy, Jonathan, who worked at Wizards of the Coast,
Okay.
and he worked on Magic the Gathering. And he was a pro Magic player himself. He's really quite a brilliant, and amazing
wow.
game designer, and put a lot of heart into the Skyverse design. And we came with a lot of our own ideas as well. And then Jonathan like really fed off those, and helped us really shape the initial card set of Skyweaver of the 510 cards that we have. So yeah, gameplay is really cool. Has lots of layers, a lot of mastery. It's very so that's the game. And then naturally in a card game, what's also interesting, I'll say, is that all the digital card games in the market, they're all just considered CCGs, collectible card games.
Interesting. Okay.
You can only you can't trade them, yet they come from the genesis of trading card games. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so that's a cool, like awesome. So we're already offering something novel into the ecosystem by leveraging blockchain, because what you want to do is be like, okay, what can I use this Web3 technology for, of things that I haven't done before? Right. So there's that.
Yeah.
Plus, the gameplay, of course, itself, we have to kind of innovate as well. We can't we're not going to do a Hearthstone clone or something like this. We have to offer something new and novel to the community, to the gamers, and at the same time leveraging some other properties. So in terms of the architecture to your question, the idea is, of course, the cards, like going back to the beginning, is they're the virtual items, they're the blockchain items. So the economy is entirely on blockchain.
Okay.
Right? So the cards are instantiated and tokenized and owned on a blockchain.
And so I'm assuming that means that I can just go to OpenSea right now, and I can just buy cards, directly off of OpenSea.
You can buy cards on OpenSea, yeah.
And I assume any other NFT marketplace.
Yeah, anything else because there's a lot of interoperability and compatibility. So any other marketplace that would have the liquidity of Skyweaver cards, then yeah, you can go buy them. I don't know other ones that have it. We do have our own Nifty Swap marketplace that's built into the Skyweaver app.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually where if people are trading in the marketplace, the secondary, the majority of liquidity is on a DEX protocol we wrote ourselves called Nifty Swap. But that's something that's another conversation. But
This guy, I tell you, this guy, he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop. He hasn't stopped since I've known you.
I
So
didn't
that's
come.
insane. You just keep building,
That's
don't
not
you?
me, man. That was Philippe Casseguay, man. That was our director of product. He's
Oh
an
wow.
absolute legend, actually. So yeah, we were again fortunate, very fortunate to like continue to build our team. I got to tell you, like there's so many phenomenal people now, which is 46 people and all that. But
Wow, 46 people.
yeah, but yeah, back. I just want to say like this architecture and that when you think about a blockchain, think about it as like a database,
Yeah.
right? So you store data on it, and you can interact with it. You can like read and write to it, kind of change state on it.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what you're doing. But it's of course it's a database that anybody can read and write to,
Yeah.
right? And that's why you have to kind of pay a fee in order to write something. And there's all that whole Byzantine fault tolerant stuff to make sure that someone doesn't manipulate someone's state in a malicious way and things like this. And that's it. And so and you can have kind of a programming language on it as well that can help you kind of program the state and how it gets actually transitioned and how it gets updated.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's a database,
Yeah.
for digital assets and their functioning thereof. And so you can build these and so that's, as you can imagine, Skyweaver's economy is all in the blockchain, the assets, the trading, the ownership, and things like this. The gameplay is not, right? The gameplay is all off-chain. You could do some crazy cool, like we have some interesting stuff about like making the game provable and all these things, but we don't have to talk about that today. But yeah, that's the essence of it.
That's insane to me. But it's like I'm just like, oh, like Ian back in 2017. Ian back in 2017 when I was talking to you, Ian. Why didn't you just tell me that? You know what I mean? Like, why
didn't know.
Why didn't you tell me this, Ian? Come on, Ian. No, but that's so cool. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, like, obviously, it was still early days back then and everything, and just kind of seeing the journey. Obviously knowing you for so long and kind of like just following your journey, like through that whole time and kind of like seeing what it is now. I mean, it's like, in my opinion, very well deserved. I mean, it's one of those things where, the power of community, the power of just building, the power of exploring, the power of innovating, kind of being a bit dissatisfied with the norm and wanting to push boundaries and kind of try new things. Like that's the Peter I've always known. And for that to kind of, come to fruition now in the form of Skyweaver Game, it's just like very, very, very well deserved. So
thanks, dude.
Huge congrats. And like I'm just happy to be here and obviously capture the story for really everyone out there watching. And so I hope you can kind of learn and be inspired by that. But
thank you, Taz. It's great to see your journey, man. Keep being friends up for all these years. And I know you're a crazy developer yourself. I've actually been trying to get you on my team for so many damn years. But I just can't, you're busy doing you're ripping on your own path, which is really cool. And it's great to connect with you on this as well. So
you're too kind, dude. You're too kind. But I'm not done with you yet.
Okay.
We're not wrapping up yet. But like, I guess tell me more about what's next. And I want to hear about you. Like I haven't talked to you in ages. So I want to hear about things you're up to outside of, work as well. So I guess I'll start with essentially what's next for Skyweaver. Like what's next on your journey as a company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, we released in November 25th, 2021, mainnet economy, all that stuff. We have an amazing, community of users ourselves. Like we have a, Discord community of 95,000 people. We have 270,000 people in the game. It's just about iterating and going deeper into like the gameplay, but the game meta and the economy. We have all these wonderful plans. So it's just about continuing the roadmap. At the same time, there's obviously a lot of infrastructure that we built out, including like a wallet product called Sequence, as well as infrastructure under a set of open source tools. So like our company horizon has always been, if you think about it, it's just been like, how do we make something cool on Web3, right? So people can come to Web3, right? And now we're doing that. We want to keep making it more cool, but we want to really drive the utility of Web3, right? And now how do we help other developers to also create more content so we can, make Web3 even more fun? So our focus is really, supporting both of these things. And we're growing our team. I'm sure by December, if we're lucky with hiring, because hiring is not easy, we have enough work for 80 people. There's no question, So if you're a developer or a product builder or a marketer or anything, please reach out. We are certainly hiring, and we have an amazing team of people. It's a lot of fun with the work, and it's just focusing on that and supporting both of our products and growing out. And we are launching a third product, Nifty Swap. it's a smaller product in terms of its construction, but very simple. But I think a very interesting kind of component into the overall space. So yeah, just gonna that'll be the next 4 years. Just the whole stack, right? Just pushing.
Geez, that's remarkable. That's insane. And so, and you mentioned in there community. So you have a Discord community. You have a large group of users that are using that are playing the game right now, and you're kind of giving back to essentially the larger Web3 kind of development community through open source, but then also obviously fostering essentially more developers to enter the space through that. And again, that obviously harkens back to Toronto Ruby, like Go TO, and kind of like the early days of fostering those communities and advancing those communities, and kind of like essentially being able to hire from those communities. Like essentially at the end of the day, it's a long tail effort, and you need to be serious about your commitments in the space. You can't come at it kind of like a big issue that we had starting Toronto JS way back in I think 2010, which was really inspired from going to Toronto Ruby and kind of everything that we learned from Toronto Ruby, was that. Like essentially if a company starts a community with a corporate incentive, let's say they want to hire, they start a community. They hire that person, and then that community just suffers because that corporate incentive has kind of succeeded, and you've hired that person, so you no longer need the community. That never works. Right, the community suffers as a result. You need to be kind of committed to community fundamentally, like year after year, wanting to do the best for that community, and that's what kind of ends up elevating everyone involved. It ends up elevating all the people inside that community. When you elevate the people inside that community, you elevate the community itself. It's a beautiful positive feedback loop that just ends up benefiting everyone. And kind of hearing about really your dedication to community over I guess over a decade that I've known you, and your continued commitment to community, like for me personally, being involved in community, that speaks volumes to me. And so yeah, dude, I guess yes. Like what sort of stuff are you up to now? Like what do you do outside Skyweaver?
Not a lot, to be honest. Not a whole lot. Yeah, I just hang with my wife, go for walks, or sometimes see friends or family, but don't get to see everyone enough. COVID kind of, changed the flow a little bit, but let me at least focus on stuff. But yeah, no, I love I'm still super stoked about I'm just reading more shit or hacking on stuff. Like, I don't know. Like sometimes my wife's like, oh man, like you're on your computer again. She's like, why don't you do something else? I'm like, I am doing something else. It's same screen, different something else, She's really encourages me to do anything else. No, but we like to go for walks, and and as the weather warms up, I'm sure you can go for hikes. We love going to like up north. We love the nature, or skiing, or things like that. Trying to be. I think being active is really important, and trying to incorporate that. Maybe go surf or going for some runs. Those are some plans. So yeah. That's it, man.
That's awesome. So, but it's like really glued to his computer screen is really the main thing. And then his wife has to pry him off of that screen to kind of go do something else. And so I find that so funny. But yeah, dude, I guess we'll wrap it up there. So it's been an absolute pleasure seeing you again. I can't even remember the last time I saw you, honestly. And obviously following your journey this whole time. For me, it's just been again, very soul nourishing to kind of see you succeed in these ways, and kind of like all those decades of hard work and learning and building and exploring and innovating, and all of that kind of community effort, again, starting to really pay off now, and I think it's incredibly well deserved. I mean, 46 people across all those different countries, some insane folk that you mentioned you're working with, the support of the community to kind of enable all of this, and kind of your continued dedication to community through Skyweaver. I'm like, if you've seen this channel enough, you can kind of see why I just had to get Peter on here for all of you. So thanks again,
man. Thanks
dude.
a lot, brother.
It's so good to see you.
And
yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.